The text message arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, glowing like a neon sign in the darkness of our bedroom. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. Dave will never know. I stared at my wife Sarah's phone screen, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged animal. The device had buzzed against the nightstand, and in my half-asleep state, I'd reached for it, thinking it was mine. Now I wished I'd never touched the damn thing. My name is Dave Morgan, and until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I'm 38, manage a mid-scale restaurant called Murphy's Grill in downtown Cleveland, and I've been married to Sarah for 12 years. We live in a modest two-story house in Lakewood, drive reliable cars, and have what most people would call a comfortable middle-class existence. But apparently, my wife has been screwing someone behind my back. I set the phone down with trembling fingers and looked at Sarah sleeping beside me. Her auburn hair was spread across the pillow, her face peaceful in the dim light filtering through our bedroom blinds. She looked innocent, beautiful even. The same woman I'd fallen in love with in college, the same woman who'd promised to love me until death do us part, the same woman who was apparently planning to meet her lover tomorrow while I was at work. My mind raced as I tried to process what I'd just read. The message was from someone named R in her contacts. No full name, just that single letter. Smart. Cautious. This wasn't some random hookup. This was planned, organized, careful. I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible and padded downstairs to the kitchen. The house felt different now, like the walls themselves were keeping secrets. I made coffee with shaking hands, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. Confront her? Demand answers? Pack my bags and leave? Or maybe, just maybe, I should find out exactly what I was dealing with before I made any moves. The next morning, Sarah acted completely normal. She kissed me goodbye at the door, told me she loved me, and reminded me that she had a late fitness class that evening. A fitness class. Right. I wondered if that's what she called it. Have a good day, honey, she said, adjusting my collar like she had 1,000 times before. Don't work too hard. I managed to smile. You too. Enjoy your class. If she caught the hesitation in my voice, she didn't show it. She just grabbed her gym bag and headed out to her Honda Civic, leaving me standing in the doorway feeling like the biggest fool in Ohio. At Murphy's Grill, I went through the motions of managing the lunch rush, but my mind was elsewhere. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time I saw a couple laughing together at one of our tables, my stomach twisted into knots. Around 2 o'clock during the afternoon lull, I called my old college buddy Nate Harrison. Nate works in IT for a medical equipment company and has always been the guy I turn to when I need advice or just someone to listen. Dave, what's up, man? You sound like hell. I need to ask you something, and I need you to keep it between us. Shoot. I took a deep breath. If someone wanted to find out what their spouse was really up to, hypothetically speaking, how would they go about it? There was a long pause. Dave, please tell me you're not talking about Sarah. I'm not ready to get into details yet. I just need to know my options. Nate sighed. Look, man, there are ways. Phone records, GPS tracking, social media monitoring. But you've got to be careful about the legal stuff. You can't just hack into someone's accounts or install spyware without their knowledge. That's a felony. What about following someone, taking pictures? In public, that's legal. But Dave, if you're even thinking about this stuff, maybe you should just talk to her first. Maybe. I'll call you back. I hung up and stared at the restaurant's lunch crowd, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. The problem was, I already knew talking to Sarah wouldn't work. If she was cheating, she'd just deny it. If she wasn't, I'd look like a paranoid idiot for even asking. No, I needed proof. Real, undeniable evidence. That evening, Sarah came home at 9:30, claiming her fitness class had run long. She was showered and dressed in clean clothes, but I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. She was wearing different underwear than she'd put on that morning. I'd seen her get dressed, and she'd been wearing plain white cotton panties. Now, she had on black lace. How was class? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Great. We worked on core strength tonight. I'm going to be sore tomorrow. She wasn't even breathing hard. Over the next few days, I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. Sarah's phone was always face down now. She'd started taking it with her to the bathroom. She was doing her hair differently, wearing makeup on days when she used to go barefaced. And she'd bought new clothes, sexier clothes that she claimed were just for her. But the real confirmation came the following Tuesday, exactly 1 week after I'd first seen that text message. I'd left work early, claiming I had a dentist appointment. Instead, I drove to the parking lot of Sarah's gym, Fitness First, and waited. Her car was there, but when I walked inside and asked the front desk if Sarah Morgan was in a class, the teenager behind the counter checked her computer and shook her head. Sorry, we don't have anyone by that name registered for any classes today. My heart sank into my stomach. Are you sure? Sarah Morgan? Auburn hair? About 5'6"? I can double check our membership database, but I don't see any classes scheduled for a Sarah Morgan today or any day this week. I thanked her and walked back to my car on unsteady legs. Sarah wasn't taking fitness classes. She'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe months. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wanted to drive home and wait for her, confront her the moment she walked through the door with her lies and her post-sex shower smell. But another part of me, the part that had always been methodical and careful, knew I needed more information. I needed to know who R was. That night, I barely slept. Sarah came home at her usual 9:30, spinning the same story about her fitness class. I nodded and smiled and asked about her day, all while feeling like I was going to throw up. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to follow her. Following your wife turns out to be harder than it looks in movies. For one thing, Sarah knows my car. For another, I had no idea what I was doing. I called in sick to work, something I never do, and borrowed Nate's beat-up Ford pickup truck. Nate didn't ask too many questions, but I could see the concern in his eyes when I picked up the keys. Dave, whatever's going on, just be careful, okay? I will. And call me if you need backup. I almost laughed. Backup for what? Watching my wife cheat on me? Sarah left the house at 10:30 a.m., which was unusual. Her supposed fitness classes were always in the evening. I followed her at what I hoped was a safe distance, my hands sweating on the steering wheel. She didn't go to the gym. Instead, she drove to a Starbucks on the west side of town, parked, and went inside. Through the large windows, I watched her order a drink and sit at a corner table, checking her phone repeatedly. At 10:45, a man walked in. Even from across the parking lot, I could tell he was the kind of guy women noticed. Tall, broad-shouldered, with perfectly styled dark hair and the confident stride of someone who'd never been turned down for anything in his life. He was wearing an expensive-looking suit and carrying himself like he owned the place. He spotted Sarah immediately and walked over to her table. She stood up to greet him and they hugged. Not a friendly hug, a lover's hug. The kind of hug where bodies press together and hands linger. I felt like I was going to be sick. They sat together for about 30 minutes, talking intently. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could see their body language. Sarah was animated, smiling, touching his arm. He was leaning forward, focused entirely on her. At one point, he reached across the table and took her hand. My hand. The hand that wore my wedding ring. When they stood to leave, the man walked Sarah to her car. They kissed before she got in. A real kiss, not some casual peck on the cheek. Then, he walked to a silver BMW, parked 2 spaces away. I memorized the license plate number. That evening, Sarah came home with shopping bags from Nordstrom. I did a little retail therapy today, she said, showing me a new dress. It was red, form-fitting, and cost more than I made in 2 days at the restaurant. Do you like it? It's nice, I managed. What's the occasion? Do I need an occasion to look good for my husband? The lie came so easily to her. She was looking good, all right, just not for me. Over the next few days, I threw myself into investigating like it was a second job. I used the license plate number to find out that the BMW was registered to someone named Robert Price. A quick Google search revealed that Robert Price was a real estate agent with Morrison and Associates, one of the biggest firms in Cleveland. His website photo confirmed what I already knew. He was handsome in that polished, professional way that probably made women swoon. His bio said he was 42, divorced, and specialized in luxury properties. Of course he did. I started following Sarah more regularly, learning her patterns. Tuesdays and Thursdays were coffee dates with Robert. Fridays, they met for lunch at upscale restaurants I could never afford. And twice, they'd gone to the Marriott downtown in the middle of the afternoon. Each discovery felt like a punch to the gut, but I kept going. I needed to understand the full scope of what I was dealing with. The breakthrough came when I overheard Sarah talking to her sister Jenny on the phone. I'd come home early from work to grab some papers I'd forgotten, and Sarah was in the kitchen, speaking in hushed tones. "I know it's complicated, Jen, but you don't understand what it's like being married to someone who has no ambition. Dave's content managing that little restaurant for the rest of his life. He'll never be anything more than what he is right now." My blood ran cold. Robert gets it. He's successful. He's going places. And the way he makes me feel, God, I haven't felt like that in years. I stood frozen in the hallway, listening to my wife tear apart our marriage and my character to justify her affair. I know I should probably leave Dave first, but it's complicated. The house is in both our names, and I don't want to lose everything. Robert says I should be smart about it. Make sure I'm protected financially before I make any big moves. So that was it. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to leave me and take half of everything we'd built together, everything I'd worked for. "I have to go," Sarah said suddenly. "Dave might come home early." I quickly slipped back outside and made a show of just arriving, jingling my keys loudly as I came through the front door. "Hey, honey," Sarah called out, her voice bright and cheerful. "You're home early." "Forgot some paperwork," I said, grabbing the files from my desk. "How's your day going?" "Oh, just the usual boring housewife stuff." I looked at her standing there in our kitchen, smiling at me like nothing had happened, and felt something inside me snap. Not break, snap. Like a rubber band stretched too far. "That's nice," I said. "Well, I should get back to work. Don't want to disappoint anyone with my lack of ambition." If she caught the edge in my voice, she didn't show it. That night, I called Nate and asked him to meet me for a beer. We went to O'Malley's, a dive bar near his apartment, where the music was loud enough to cover our conversation. "She's cheating on me," I said without preamble. Nate nearly choked on his beer. "Jesus, Dave, are you sure?" I told him everything. The text message, the fake fitness classes, Robert Price and his BMW, the phone conversation I'd overheard. By the time I finished, Nate looked like he wanted to punch something. "That's fucked up, man. I'm sorry. The worst part is, she's planning to leave me anyway. She's just waiting for the right moment to screw me over financially. So what are you going to do?" I took a long pull of my beer and looked around the bar. It was full of regular people living regular lives, dealing with regular problems. None of them were sitting there planning revenge against their cheating wives. But then again, maybe they should be. "I'm going to beat her to it," I said. "What do you mean?" "She wants to play games? Fine. But I'm going to make sure I win." The next phase of my investigation required more sophisticated methods. I couldn't just follow Sarah around forever. Eventually she'd notice, or I'd get caught, or I'd do something stupid that would blow everything up before I was ready. I needed evidence. Real, documented, undeniable proof of what she was doing. Nate helped me set up a basic surveillance system. Nothing illegal. I made sure of that. We installed a small GPS tracker on Sarah's car. Since it was jointly owned and registered in both our names, I had every legal right to track its location. We also set up a hidden camera in our living room, positioned to capture anyone who might come to the house while I was at work. "This feels like something out of a spy movie," Nate said as we tested the camera's Wi-Fi connection to my phone. "Yeah, well, apparently my life has turned into a spy movie." The GPS tracker revealed patterns I hadn't noticed before. Sarah wasn't just meeting Robert for coffee and lunch dates. She was going to his house, a sprawling colonial in Shaker Heights that had to be worth at least $500,000. She was spending hours there, sometimes entire afternoons. The camera in our living room didn't capture anything for the first week. But on a Thursday afternoon while I was dealing with a kitchen crisis at Murphy's Grill, I got a motion alert on my phone. I stepped into the office and pulled up the live feed. Robert Price was sitting on my couch, in my house, drinking what looked like my beer. I watched in real time as Sarah came into the frame, wearing a robe I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. She curled up next to him and they started making out like teenagers. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. They didn't have sex on the couch, at least not while I was watching. But seeing another man in my house, touching my wife, drinking my beer, it was almost worse than the hotel meetings. This was my space, my sanctuary, and they were violating it. I saved the video file and tried to get back to work, but I was useless for the rest of the day. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Robert Price sitting on my furniture like he belonged there. That evening, Sarah was especially affectionate. She made my favorite dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and suggested we watch a movie together on the couch, the same couch where she'd been making out with her boyfriend 6 hours earlier. "This is nice," she said, snuggling against me during the opening credits. "We should do this more often," I wanted to scream. Instead, I put my arm around her and tried to focus on the movie. Over the next 2 weeks, I collected evidence like it was my job. Photos of Sarah and Robert together at restaurants. Video of them entering and leaving the Marriott. GPS logs showing her car parked at his house for hours at a time. I even managed to record a phone conversation where Sarah told Robert she loved him. But the real jackpot came when I discovered Sarah's secret email account. I'd been trying to figure out how they communicated without leaving traces on her regular phone. The text messages I'd seen were rare, and they were always vague. There had to be another method. The answer came to me when I was cleaning out our home office and found a piece of paper with an email address written in Sarah's handwriting. Hotwife, 2021, gmail.com. Hotwife. Jesus Christ. Nate helped me figure out the password using information I knew about Sarah, her maiden name, important dates, pet names. It took us 3 days, but we finally cracked it. Robert, my love, 123. I felt sick typing it in. The email account was a treasure trove of evidence. Hundreds of messages between Sarah and Robert, dating back almost 8 months. They'd been planning their affair carefully, discussing when and where to meet, sharing explicit photos, and worst of all, talking about me. "Dave suspects something," Sarah had written in a message from 2 weeks ago. "He's been asking weird questions about my schedule." Robert's response, "Don't worry about it. Guys like him are too passive to actually do anything. Just keep playing the loving wife for a little longer." Guys like him. Too passive. Another exchange from a month ago made my blood boil. Sarah, "I feel guilty sometimes. Dave's not a bad person." Robert, "He's holding you back from the life you deserve. You're too good for someone who's content being mediocre. When you're ready to make the move, I'll take care of you properly." Sarah, "I know, it's just hard. We've been together for so long." Robert, "Sunk cost fallacy. Don't let the past keep you from a better future. Besides, it's not like he'll fight for you. He'll probably just roll over and let you take whatever you want." Roll over. Let her take whatever she wanted. We'd see about that. The final piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. I was having lunch at a deli near Robert's real estate office when I overheard him talking to a colleague about his situation. "She's married, but not for much longer," Robert was saying. "Her husband's some loser who manages a restaurant. She's just waiting for the right time to pull the trigger." "Sounds complicated," his colleague replied. "Not really. The guy's a pushover. Sarah says he'll probably just sign whatever papers she puts in front of him. No fight, no drama. She'll get the house, half his retirement, alimony, the works. And then you two can ride off into the sunset?" Robert laughed. "Something like that. I mean, I'm not looking to get married again anytime soon. But Sarah's fun and she's got a good thing going with this divorce settlement. Why mess with success?" I sat there eating my sandwich, listening to this asshole talk about destroying my life like it was a minor inconvenience. Like I was some pathetic character in a story that didn't matter. That night I lay in bed next to Sarah, listening to her breathe, and made a decision. They thought I was passive. They thought I was a pushover. They thought I'd just roll over and let them take everything I'd worked for. They were wrong. I spent 3 days planning my approach. This wasn't going to be some emotional outburst or dramatic confrontation. I was going to be methodical, controlled, and devastating. First, I made copies of everything. The photos, videos, emails, GPS logs, phone recordings. I stored them in multiple locations: cloud storage, a safety deposit box, and with Nate for safekeeping. If Sarah or Robert tried to destroy evidence or claim I was making things up, I'd have backup. Next, I consulted with a divorce attorney. Patricia Hendricks came highly recommended and had a reputation for being aggressive when it came to protecting her clients' interests. "This is quite a collection of evidence," she said, reviewing the files I'd brought her. "Your wife and her boyfriend made this very easy for you. What are my options?" In Ohio, adultery doesn't automatically entitle you to a larger share of marital assets, but it can be a factor, especially when there's evidence of dissipation of marital resources. These hotel bills, expensive dinners, gifts. If she was using joint funds or credit cards, we can argue she was wasting marital assets on her affair. What about the house? That's more complicated since both your names are on the deed. But given this evidence and the fact that she was planning to leave you anyway, we can probably negotiate a favorable settlement. The key is to file first and control the narrative. I left Patricia's office feeling more confident than I had in weeks, but I wasn't ready to file for divorce yet. First, I wanted Sarah and Robert to know that their little secret wasn't so secret anymore. I chose a Friday evening for the confrontation. Sarah had told me she was going to dinner with her sister Jenny, but the GPS tracker showed her car parked at Robert's house. Perfect. I drove to Shaker Heights and parked across the street from Robert's Colonial. Sarah's Honda was in the driveway, right next to the BMW I'd been seeing in parking lots for weeks. I walked up to the front door and rang the bell. Robert answered, wearing khakis and a polo shirt, looking relaxed and comfortable. His expression changed the moment he saw me. "Can I help you?" he asked, but I could see recognition in his eyes. "Hi there. I'm Dave Morgan, Sarah's husband. I think we need to talk." Robert's face went pale. "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Sarah's here, isn't she? Silver Honda in your driveway? I've been tracking it for weeks." Before Robert could respond, Sarah appeared behind him. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Dave? What are you doing here?" "Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing. I thought you were having dinner with Jenny." Sarah opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. No words came out. "Maybe we should take this inside," I said, "unless you want to have this conversation on the front porch, where all your neighbors can hear." Robert stepped aside reluctantly, and I walked into his house. It was exactly what I'd expected. Modern furniture, expensive art, everything perfectly arranged to impress. The kind of place Sarah had always said she wished we could afford. "Dave, I can explain," Sarah started, but I held up my hand. "Actually, you can't. I know everything, Sarah. The coffee dates, the hotel meetings, the afternoons here at Robert's house. I know about the secret email account. Hot Wife S 2021, really? I know about your plans to divorce me and take half of everything. I even know what you really think of me." I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Sarah's phone conversation with her sister, the one where she called me unambitious and mediocre. Sarah's face crumpled. "Dave, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" Robert, who had been standing silently by the fireplace, finally found his voice. "Look, man, this is between you and your wife. I don't want any trouble." I turned to face him. "Oh, but you're already in trouble, Robert. You see, I've been documenting everything for weeks. Photos, videos, emails, financial records. I know about every hotel room, every expensive dinner, every gift you've bought my wife with money from our joint accounts." "That's not illegal," Robert said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe not. But it's going to be very expensive for both of you." I sat down on Robert's expensive leather couch and made myself comfortable. "Here's what's going to happen. Sarah, you're going to move out of our house this weekend. You can take your clothes and personal items, but everything else stays. The furniture, the appliances, the wedding gifts, all of it stays." "You can't just kick me out," Sarah protested. "It's my house too." "Actually, I can. See, I've already filed for divorce. My attorney served the papers an hour ago. They're sitting on the kitchen counter at home. And given the evidence I have of your adultery and financial misconduct, she's confident we can get a very favorable settlement." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Dave, please, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this. You're right, it didn't have to be like this. You could have talked to me about being unhappy. You could have suggested marriage counseling. You could have asked for a divorce before you started screwing around. But you chose to lie and cheat and plan to screw me over financially. So now we're doing this my way. I stood up and walked over to where Robert was standing. And you, Robert, I know what you said about me at lunch last week. About how I'm a pushover who won't fight back. About how you're not really interested in marrying Sarah, just having fun with her while she goes through her divorce. Robert's eyes widened. You were listening to my private conversation? In a public restaurant. Perfectly legal. I'm sure Sarah will be interested to know that you think of her as temporary entertainment. Sarah looked at Robert with confusion and hurt. What is he talking about? Nothing, baby. He's just trying to cause trouble between us. I pulled out my phone again and played the recording I'd made at the deli. Robert's voice filled the room, talking about Sarah like she was a casual fling and describing me as a loser who wouldn't put up a fight. The look on Sarah's face was worth everything I'd been through. You bastard, she whispered, but I wasn't sure if she was talking to me or Robert. Sarah, let me explain, Robert started, but she was already grabbing her purse. I need to go, she said, heading for the door. Sarah, wait, Robert called after her, but she was gone. I looked at Robert, who was standing in his perfect living room, looking like his world had just collapsed. Guess you're not as smooth as you thought, I said. You don't know what you've done, Robert said. Sarah loves me. Sarah loves the idea of you. The money, the house, the lifestyle. But you just told her you're not interested in anything permanent. How do you think that's going to work out for you? I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Robert, I'd be careful about your reputation in this town. Adultery might not be illegal, but it's not great for business either, especially in real estate, where trust is everything. I left him standing there and drove home, feeling better than I had in months. Sarah was waiting for me when I got home, sitting at our kitchen table with the divorce papers spread out in front of her. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was anger there too. You really did it, she said. You actually filed for divorce? What did you expect me to do? Pretend I didn't know about your affair? I expected you to fight for our marriage, to at least try to work things out. I sat down across from her, looking at the woman I'd loved for 12 years, and felt nothing but exhaustion. How exactly was I supposed to fight for our marriage when you'd already decided it was over? You and Robert were planning my exit strategy while I was still trying to be a good husband. I never meant for it to happen this way, but it did happen this way. You made choices, Sarah. You chose to lie to me for months. You chose to sleep with another man. You chose to plan a divorce that would leave me with nothing. The only choice I'm making is refusing to be a victim. Sarah picked up the divorce papers and flipped through them. Your lawyer wants me to give up my claim to the house. That's right. That's not fair. I helped pay the mortgage for 12 years. And I helped pay for your affair for 8 months. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, new clothes, gifts for your boyfriend. All of it came out of our joint accounts. My attorney calls it dissipation of marital assets. Sarah's face flushed. Those expenses were minimal compared to the value of the house. Maybe. But combined with the adultery and your documented plan to defraud me in the divorce, it's enough to make a judge very unsympathetic to your position. We sat in silence for a few minutes, the weight of our failed marriage hanging between us like a physical presence. What about Robert? I asked. Are you going back to him? Sarah laughed bitterly. After what I heard tonight, I don't think so. So, what will you do? I don't know. Find an apartment, I guess. Start over. You could have started over with me. We could have worked on our problems together. But you chose to start over with someone else while you were still married to me. Sarah wiped her eyes with a tissue. I know I hurt you, Dave. I know I made terrible choices. But destroying my life isn't going to make you feel better. I'm not destroying your life, Sarah. I'm protecting mine. There's a difference. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood we'd called home for 8 years. I'll need time to find a place and pack my things. You have until Sunday night. After that, I'm changing the locks. That's only 3 days. You've had 8 months to plan your exit. 3 days should be plenty. The next morning, Sarah started packing. I helped her load boxes into her car, and we worked in relative silence. It felt surreal, dismantling our life together like we were cleaning out a storage unit. Jenny came over on Saturday to help. She avoided eye contact with me, probably feeling guilty about her role in enabling Sarah's affair. At one point, I heard them talking in the bedroom. "I can't believe Dave had you followed," Jenny said. "He didn't have me followed. He followed me himself, and he recorded my phone calls. And he hacked into my email." "That's so creepy." "That's so smart," I corrected from the hallway. "And everything I did was perfectly legal, unlike adultery, which is still technically illegal in Ohio, even if it's rarely prosecuted." Both women went quiet. On Sunday evening, Sarah loaded the last of her boxes into a U-Haul truck. She stood in our empty bedroom, looking around at the space where we'd slept together for 8 years. "I really did love you, Dave. I still do, in my way." "I know," I said. "But love isn't enough when there's no trust left. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" I thought about it for a moment. Maybe someday. But I'll never forget. Sarah nodded and walked out of the house. I watched from the front window as she drove away, taking 12 years of marriage with her. The next few weeks were strange. The house felt too big and too quiet. I threw myself into work at Murphy's Grill, picking up extra shifts and focusing on improving the business. My staff noticed the change in my energy and attitude. "You seem different lately, boss," said Maria, my assistant manager. "More focused. Just trying to stay busy?" "Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. We had our best month ever in October." The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Sarah's attorney tried to negotiate a better settlement, but the evidence I'd gathered made their position weak. In.